Hello, this is Kathryn, and this is the Time Bender's Toolbox podcast. Welcome back. Today I want to give you a little taste of what it's like to bend or step out of time. When you learn how to bend time, what you're actually doing is accessing time ahead of itself. And don't worry, I'll explain that. When you learn how to use this very simple tool of bending time, and yes, it is very simple, you are accessing the greater field of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Consciousness is the all that is. You can call it God, and there is an expression of God in everything, just as everything has an expression of consciousness. So when you're accessing the tool of bending time, you're accessing the greater field of consciousness, you're accessing a place that is beyond the confines of the 3D time-space. What we've used for a very, very long time to define our reality, to create value and meaning of our reality and a sense of order out of our reality. So when you access this tool of bending time, you're accessing the greater field of consciousness, which is beyond the reality bubble of the 3D time space. What you're actually doing is activating a higher harmonic of you. Let's just say an avatar of you that exists in multidimensional time and space. And this includes, but is also beyond, the you that has an avatar in 3D. You are having a different conversation with time here at this level of awareness. And so what you experience as physical time here in 3D has already happened in higher dimensional space. Because psychologically, because we have two ways of really experiencing time: physical time, which is the clocking of calendar time, clock time, and then we also have psychological time, which is our experience of it, our sense of it. Psychologically, time is accelerated and seems to speed up when we access elevated dimensions. And to access the tool of bending time, it's basically multidimensional technology. You are accessing a tool that exists beyond 3D time space. Thus, you are activating an elevated dimension of consciousness. Thus, you are activating and accessing a higher harmonic, a higher avatar of you. So when you access time from a higher dimensional perspective of you, you're actually accessing a higher dimensional translation of time where it is not yet fixed in the very dense bubble of the 3D time space. And so think of it this way. You have a window of opportunity to imprint an event from a very flexible, very malleable, very elastic, less fixed translation of time in higher fields of consciousness first, before it moves into the dense and fixed reality of 3D. And at first blush, hearing this, it might sound a little nonsensical. Sure, until you actually apply it and use it. And then it not only makes perfect sense, but it's super cool, entirely practical and tangible and useful in your everyday life. What do I mean by that? Well, it has real-world applications and benefits when you are bending time. In other words, when you are slowing down or accelerating time. How does this have real-world applications and benefits that make sense for you right now? Well, are you someone that's always late and you wish you could slow time down? Do you sometimes wish you could speed time up to experience something more fun than what you're doing right now sooner? Learning how to time bend is not only easier than you think, and it's a simple tool, but it allows you to play by new rules of engagement with the alchemy of time. And those above scenarios, those real world applications I just mentioned, are not only possible, but really fun to play with. Now, naturally, this is something I discuss in my signature program in Time Lens Expanded Masterclass that allows you to really change the conversation you're having with time. But you get to shift your entire sense of reality into a place of empowerment when you learn a simple tool like this. So I want to give you a taste of this today, so you can start playing with this and you can see for yourself. You don't have to just take my word for it that you can be a time bender. So if you've been following me for a while, you know I talk a lot about ascension, moving into 5D reality, multidimensional awareness, and accessing a higher, elevated level of consciousness. When we do this, we are changing our conversation with, our relationship with consciousness. Meaning, as we ascend, as we move up in multidimensional awareness and consciousness, we are emitting a different electromagnetic signature of ourselves. This frequency fluctuation is elevating. It's fluctuating in between where we're placing our awareness. 3D, 4D, 5D, even beyond that. Sometimes 60, 70, 80, and even 90. Yes, we are accessing these different dimensional realms of consciousness. We may not be doing it consciously, however. But that's the really fun thing about playing with time, is that you are more conscious of what dimensional reality you are accessing because of how it's yielding real-world benefits or application in the 3D playing field of your reality, your everyday reality. So time, like everything else, is a fragment of consciousness. It's part of the holographic nature of consciousness. We can change our conversation or our relationship with it. And when we do that, we command a new authority or agency over time. We're inserting our will into this construct of time with higher intentions for a way of being. This means we're accessing an elevated level of consciousness, or we're accessing time from an elevated level of consciousness when we are commanding agency or authority over time in a way where we're working towards our highest and best good, and hopefully asking for the highest and best good of all when we are accessing and playing with time. There is definitely a level of responsibility and accountability when we learn how to use these multidimensional tools and apply them to our everyday reality. We must be conscious of how we are using these tools, like time, for our highest and best good, and for the highest and best good of all, with the least amount of resistance for all involved. That is otherwise known as the God choice. But we are ascending into higher thoughts, beliefs, emotional patterning, and this is creating electromagnetic frequency fluctuations. If you think of the electro part of you being the thoughts that you emit, and the magnetic part of you being the emotions that actually magnetize realities, things in your external environment to manifest, to show up in your physical reality because they are matching your frequency. These electromagnetic frequency fluctuations are causing different things to show up in our reality. And certainly as we keep ascending, we keep elevating our frequency, our vibration, we are magnetizing different realities, different ways of being to our lives, hopefully in ways that are more favorable, more desirable. But we are ascending into these higher thoughts, these beliefs, this emotional patterning, creating these electromagnetic frequency fluctuations based on the thoughts we're emitting, the emotions we are emitting, attracting a matching frequency in the field of all of consciousness, magnetizing, matching a resonant reality or physical manifestation of what we're feeling and thinking. We're sending out a pulse in every single moment, in every single second, signaling through our thoughts and our feelings, a desire, an intention for a way of being. Our unique electromagnetic signature is our own special fragment of consciousness. You, me, and everyone you know are a very unique and special construct, mechanic of consciousness. We are wielding it in very, very special and unique ways based on our electromagnetic frequency. So you, as a fragment of consciousness, with your unique signature of you, is having a conversation, a relationship with everything else that is a fragment of consciousness, via your resonance, via your harmonic, via your particular unique expression, your vibration that you're holding. So if you're thinking thoughts with a higher harmonic, emotions that emit a higher harmonic or resonance, believing that greater, more ideal potentials for you are available to you, you're elevating the overall harmonic of you. Your overall harmonic of your individual energetic signature is increasing. And when you do this, whenever you do this, you are changing the conversation you're having with all of consciousness, with the relationship that you're having with everything that is part of this universe, that is part of your experience. You're having a different level of conversation from having this higher harmonic. So you start matching different electromagnetic potentials in the field of consciousness, accessing the higher harmonics of everything you're having an ongoing conversation with. Things start showing up in your reality in different, more favorable ways that align in a timeline for you that is most desired. This includes not only the things that you desire to show up in a really tangible physical way, meaning having your basic needs met or more, but you're changing also your relationship with time, because time, as I mentioned, is a fragment of consciousness. So you can start having a different relationship with the experience of time, with your experience, everyday experience of time. We think of time in our very limited confine of reality, this 3D time-space matrix that we have limited ourselves to thinking that this is all there is. So we have an expression of time that exists also in this 3D bubble of reality, but in truth, when we extend out of this bubble, extend our awareness beyond the third dimension into the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, seventh, up to the 12th, 13th, 24th dimension, there are different translations of time based on those dimensional realities. You can start having a different relationship with those dimensional realities, those dimensional translations of time right now, if you want to. Time only seems fixed and inflexible because before you're only thinking about and experiencing time from a fixed, singular perspective, from the ego perspective of self, which is a very fixed point of view of reality. But when you play in the time fields, in your higher self avatar, and don't worry, we're going to connect there in a second, you have a multidimensional perspective of time, where the rules of engagement with time are quite different. So yes, you're accessing 3D time, and things will show up in your reality a little bit later. There's a small window where you are accessing time ahead of itself, as I mentioned in the beginning here, when you're working in higher dimensional translations of time. But that reality, the physical reality of it, will show up in 3D time space because you're in a body in the 3D time space where you are accessing the physicalness of your reality. But you're also accessing multidimensional translations of time when you're shifting your awareness to your higher self. You can move into the awareness of the galactic time grid, which is what I teach my students in Timeline's Expanded Masterclass how to do. It's a more sophisticated way of connecting with the galactic time grid and something I call the 12D Merkaba than what I'll be sharing here. But you can still, with what I'm sharing with you today, impress upon the field, the fragment of consciousness, that is 3D time. A different translation of working with time. You can have a different conversation with time and have time work for you to create the consequences that you wish to experience in your day-to-day life. Time will abide based on the frequency or the electromagnetic signature that you are emitting. I'm going to say that again. Time will abide to your will based on the frequency, the vibration, the electromagnetic signature that you are emitting. So when you think about, let's take the easiest example that most people have definitely some experience with, and that's being late. Being late for a meeting, being late for work, being late for a plane. It doesn't matter what it is. But we're often in those states. The alarm doesn't go off. We spill coffee on ourselves. And it makes us have to change our outfit, so we're going to be late for work. Any number of things. We're in frazzled states of being when that happens. And we feel the panic, we feel the worry, we feel the anxiety, right? But if you move into, or I should say, shift into a different level of awareness, shift to a place where you're calling in your higher self perspective instead of the very limited survival mode point of view of the ego, just take a couple deep breaths, calm yourself, get clear, get detached from the outcomes of what's going to happen if you're late. You're going to miss your plane, you're going to get fired. Detach. This only takes a minute, less than a minute. Detach from outcomes that, keep flowing or streaming in that make you go into more panic. Take a couple deep breaths, calm yourself, clear your head, and be very, very present with the now. Call in your higher self. Ask your higher self to help you connect into a place of peace and serenity. You can even ask your higher self to help you very quickly connect into a different translation of time. You can even say, higher self, connect me into time ahead of itself. Move out of that distraction of the ego fear, the doubt or the overwhelm that you can even access the elastic nature of time. That somehow this isn't available to you, or you're not smart enough or evolved enough to work with this. Just know that you can do it. Calm yourself. You'll feel something take hold in your body where you're feeling like you're accessing a higher signature of you, matching an elevated signature of expression of time as you do this. But it's all about getting yourself present and clear and calm and detached from outcomes in the moment. This is where you start to begin accessing time ahead of itself, before it becomes fixed in the density of 3D. When you're in this higher self avatar version of you, and you can simply call in too, higher self, higher self, higher self. Feel that awareness shift. Feel your body as it opens up. The more you do this, the more you practice with this, the easier this becomes and the faster this shift of awareness can take hold. Know that you can play with time beyond 3D. And then simply say to yourself, always on time with plenty of time. Always on time with plenty of time. Always on time with plenty of time. Go about what you're doing to get yourself set up to leave for that plane, to leave for work, to go pick up your friend when you said you'd be there, to be on time for that meeting, that interview. Keep yourself calm. When you feel yourself going out into anxiety and stress and worry and preoccupation again, simply call yourself back in, into the present, calling all parts and pieces of you back in. Access your higher self, or shift your awareness into your higher self. Simply say again, Always on time with plenty of time. And just breathe. Always on time with plenty of time. Detaching completely from the outcomes of what happens if you're late. What happens if you don't make that meeting on time? What happens if that plane leaves without you? You must be able to detach from those outcomes. I'm not going to say this is easy at first, but all you have to do is try it. Essentially, what you're doing when you are moving into this level of awareness and you are saying this, you are working with something that is called, well, think of it this way. Think of it as time unstacking itself. If you think of when you would take a fan and fold it, or a paper, and make it into a fan, you'd fold the pieces of the paper over and over and over again, and when you would unfold the paper, you would have something like a fan. Well, think of time in the same way. That in 3D, we only see the hard edges of that fan. We see the outer edges, the hard lines of that fan. But what time really is all the folds and all the spaces in between those hard edges of the fan. And when we are slowing down time, we are basically unstacking it. It's like taking that fan that we just folded up and smoothing the paper out so that you can see all of the folds and have a full visual of all the space in between the hard edges of the folds of the fan. You're stretching time. You're stepping out of time. And you're bending it, folding it. You're spending more time in the spaces in between time. So this is where psychologically we kind of make that quantum leap to have a different experience or sense of time and opt out of the 3D matrix, very fixed reality of time. Just try it. You don't have to know all of the reasons behind it because intellectually it's just not going to make sense. Time is completely experiential. Everything about our individual experience and conversation that we're having with time is experiential. So I do give a lot of explanation about time and the nature of time itself and how to work with, how to play with the time fields and the different constructs and translations of time. But I'm all about giving experiences of working with the new rules of engagement with time because the experience is everything. Everything about time and what you understand about it is completely experiential. So play with this. Prove it to yourself that you can slow down time if you need to. We also learn how to stack time, which is to speed up time. And that's something that I talk about in the Bending Timelines module in Timelines Expanded Masterclass. Ask yourself these questions if you still feel hung up on the fact that I can't do this, or this is for me, or this is too evolved for me, or I'm not evolved enough to do this kind of work. We all have an experience and a conversation we're having with time. Every single one of us. Of course you can do this. But your ego is going to give up some resistance. That's natural. It's always natural as you start doing this work to have there be some ego resistance. So let me help you. Let me ask you some questions. And pose these as things that you can write down and ask of yourself. And this may open up a whole wealth of creativity and a shift in your awareness by just asking yourself these questions. Why is it safe for me to unhook from my current limited relationship with time? What if I allow my mind to help me to feel less dense in my body so it is easier to transcend time? What if I let go of my identity of self through my reaction to the cyclical moments of time, to my sense of physical time? Why is it so easy to shift into the awareness of my higher self, to access a higher signature of consciousness and a higher harmonic of time? This does so many different things to help shift your awareness. Not only does having a different relationship with time allow you to move into greater levels of creativity, move into greater levels of imagination, because you are unhooking yourself from that 3D avatar of you that sees yourself through the lens of a very fixed bubble of reality that is completely confined to third dimensional time-space. So don't be surprised as you start to play with this more often, that creativity, creative impulses start to stream through you at a more pronounced level, maybe something really noticeable. Creative impulses, imaginative moments where you think of something, have an aha moment, an epiphany, and you feel you have to write it down. It leads to some great idea, or maybe the answer to something you've been kind of stumped with on a project or something like that. That's what working with a higher harmonic of time as simply a mechanism of consciousness will do for you. Anytime you're working with a higher harmonic of any mechanism of consciousness, let alone time, or let alone the construct of time, you are moving into all of the higher harmonics that are available to you in the now. Better ideas, maybe even more pronounced psychic abilities. There's no limit to what could open up for you. So I encourage you to play with this and have fun with this. And I hope this has been informative as well as kind of fun and interesting to learn about. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Bye-bye.